As of recent, the anime industry has seen a repetitiveness and staleness that has only now begun to push for more quality in the recent years. Isekai being a prime example of a genre that has been overdone to death already, with rom-coms coming close behind in that respect. Although, that being said, amongst all of the copy-paste content I've witnessed in the market today, there are still undeniably gems out there. There are reasons people rave about shows like Konosuba or Bunny Girl Senpai as they take the initial stale genre and run with it as far as they can. New twists on classic stories, character tropes ironed out, and plots fleshed out with an identity of their own. I'm not saying that all isekai or rom-coms are bad, but more so that they have become much less interesting at this point. I could name countless examples of content breaking the mold, but that's a video for another day. My point is that there is always more to explore in a genre, no matter how boring, repetitive, and overdone it can be. And the same goes for slice of life. Hello all internet weebs, incels, shut-in neets, and hikikomoris of the like. My name is Nyanachi, and today I'll be taking a dive into the most bizarre manga I've ever read. When I think of expanding upon a genre, my mind instantly thinks of TK Miz, or TK Mizu as it would be pronounced in Japan. I hope I didn't butcher that. Let's flash back to the year 2014, because a new mangaka is about to have their work adapted. TK Miz, a somewhat mysterious mangaka with only an alias to identify them, takes the industry for a spin with their genre-melding, post-apocalyptic slice-of-life tale about two young girls. That is quite the mouthful. I'm talking, of course, about Shoujo Shuumatsu Ryokou, better known as Girls' Last Tour in America. It's shameful of me to say this, but the manga is untouched territory for me, as I haven't yet read it myself. So I'll focus on the anime for this video. The anime is simply spectacular, and one of my personal favorites, so much so that I actually own it in my physical library. The plotline follows two girls, Chito and Yori, trying to find their place as the world they've come to know is slowly crumbling around them. Literally. Yet, instead of focusing on the sad, cruel, and downright terrifying fate that these two experience, the show instead chooses to focus on their daily life and the struggles that face them. In an empty, lifeless world full of ambient scenery, TK Miz manages to fill that lifeless void with just two characters. And by focusing on only two characters, their character growth and your personal attachment to them can really be developed in just 12 episodes. From wandering around in the snow looking for shelter to swimming with literally the last fish left alive, the moments these girls go through are like nothing I've seen from a traditional slice of life. Girls' Last Tour is a work of surrealism, fantasy, and relatable humanization that is timeless and wonderful in its own special way. For a genre that's experienced its fair share of comedy-driven, colorful, kawaii experiences, this one show feels quite distant. But as bizarre and out of place as Girls' Last Tour is, it is by far the most bizarre work TK Miz has written, right? Well, let us flash forward to the year 2019. 365 days plus have passed since Girls' Last Tour has ended and left the community with a hole in their weeb-shaped hearts that needs fulfillment. TK Miz is hard at work creating a much more surreal, psychedelic experience that puts the imagery of Girls' Last Tour to shame. I may be exaggerating a bit here, but believe me when I say that one of the tags for this manga is WTF am I reading? Shimeji Simulation is something special. Much like its predecessor, the manga only focuses on two characters, but much unlike its predecessor, the manga is grounded in a traditional, non-post-apocalyptic high school environment. Akin to any other school setting slice of life, this work kicks off with the two characters meeting each other for the first time. Shijima Tsukishima, the lonely shut-in hikikomori with mushrooms growing on her head, who spent the last few years living out of an apartment closet, and Majime Yamashita, the mysterious energetic blonde, born with a fried egg on her head. I'm not kidding. Shijima's personality gives off the vibe of carelessness and is a much more antisocial, closed-off girl when you first meet her, while Majime is the complete opposite. Majime is always trying to chime in during outside conversations, attempting to meet new people, and putting a positive spin on Shijima's attitude. The banter between these two is nothing short of entertaining and charming, giving us a glimpse of a much more familiar, carefree childhood experience that many of us look back on fondly. Hold on. Let's take a step back. Something is already out of place. I'm sure you guys have questions such as, why do these characters have objects on their heads, and why does it not faze them? Well, this is just the beginning, as it only takes a few chapters before the situation Shijima and Majime find themselves in get incredibly odd and unexplainable. The story kicks off in the early chapters of the manga, with the two first years being required to join a club. Not wanting to do so, they reluctantly look at the club listings, only to find that there's a hole digging club. What kind of a school hosts a hole digging club? This one, apparently. The club seems to switch every year. First it's a hole digging club, then it's a hole filling club, and so on and so forth. Probably the oddest part of the club, though, isn't that it even exists, but that the teacher running it, Miss Mogawa, seemingly becomes obsessed with digging. Miss Mogawa is a more grounded, laid-back type of teacher with a very glaring alcohol problem. You also have other interesting side characters, which include the likes of Shijima's science-obsessed sister, that weird girl with a stick, and Chito and Yori, who make occasional appearances. Throughout the story, Shijima's sister, who she calls Big Sis, spends her time investigating seemingly meaningless science that would not make sense in our own universe. And in the beginning, you truly believe her antics are just a gag. But after an experiment of hers sends our main characters into a realistic, dreamlike landscape, you begin to understand that the world you've seen up until this point is only just a glimpse of what it has in store. Each chapter brings in a new, unexplainable situation that is only grounded by the idea that this universe has its own laws that are way different from our own. But there's really no need for an explanation, plot dump, or recap to make sure you understand what's going on, because what is shown to you already gives you a good idea of what the world is like. I really appreciate a more visually focused story for a change. The setting these characters find themselves in is nothing but extraordinary, and they aren't afraid to address it themselves. From a chapter that has Shijima gaining an extra mushroom and becoming telepathic on a rainy day, to the school flipping sideways but keeping the same gravity, everyone in the story does actually find the happenings odd. And though they aren't blissfully unaware, they do tend to just play along with what's in store. It snows in summer? How about we dig out a cave and make a hot pot? Water is no longer obeying gravity. Let's play with it while we have the chance. Each chapter is so entertaining because you want to see what the two girls will make out of the twisted reality they inhabit. I found myself more often than not going back and staring at pages just to take in the scenery. So here are some of my favorites to give you an idea of what I mean. The 4 interconnected telephone poles. The cat-shaped rock. All of the donut-shaped objects Miss Mogawa makes. The giant food that Shijima dreams about. The floating water pool. Alligator. And of course, Yoshika, the fish-shaped pencil case. TK Miz really likes fish, if you couldn't tell, like, a lot. No two panels are the same, and even though so many landscapes feel out of place, they also feel like they fit in perfectly within this intriguingly crafted environment. As far as the story goes, the basic plot is the same as most slice of life. Follow the main characters in their daily life experiences and see what they get into. However, I feel like TK Miz puts a bigger emphasis on the story than it may at first seem. Although please understand that most of this is just speculation on my part. I mentioned earlier that Shijima's sister is studying science. That science seems to be a driving force of the weird happenings in the story. Shijima's sister begins to learn the out-of-ordinary properties of the universe and apply them in situations, and the few bits of dialogue she has had throughout the story also indicate that she knows something is coming, or something bigger is at play. You do gradually start to notice a shift between the early simple chapters and the later practically brain-melting pages of confusion as well. However, there isn't much driving force behind a tense, engaging, ever-growing story. The main attraction is what happens to the characters in the moment, rather than where they're headed next. And I believe a grand story is less important when the growth and experiences lie within the expertly written characters and the environment they play with. You want to see how Shijima and Majime develop, where they go, and what they make out of this vast, unexplainable landscape that surrounds them. That's where I feel the story really shines. I feel that the beauty of this piece lies within the idea that nothing is elaborated upon. Explanation isn't always something an audience needs when they can observe and discover one for themselves. The visuals and experiences of Shimeji Simulation reflect upon where our brains wander when we're daydreaming, sleeping, or maybe tripping on ghost fish. Shimeji Simulation is truly something special, and I certainly enjoyed reading it quite a bit. The manga is ongoing and currently has 26 chapters in total. It is released monthly through Media Factory's Comic-Kun magazine, so if you happen to live in Japan, you could probably pick it up. If you are at all interested in slice of life, trippy visuals, or are familiar with TK Miz's other works, I cannot recommend this manga enough. I would tell you where to find the English translation, but unfortunately there is currently no official English localization. Although I think anybody with a keyboard and mouse wouldn't have too hard of a time finding the fan translation. For something I just stumbled upon by chance, it has quickly become one of my favorite reads of this year. Plus, who doesn't love Bunny Girl Majime?